Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. We're going right to Dr. Phil Chan. We're going to chat about the issue. He's a regular guest with us talking about key health issues. Dr. Chan, let's talk about stress today. Welcome.
Thank you.
A lot of stress based on what we see in social media. Most people are stressed about just about everything these days. We didn't talk about stress 30 years ago. Why do we talk about stress? What is it?
So stress is actually a normal part of life, right? We all experience occasional stress for sure, whether or not you have a big test or something big to do at work, or significant stress related to the death of a loved one, loss of a job, etc. It's a normal part of life. And so is anxiety. We generally think about anxiety as a way in which your body responds to stress. What's abnormal is for people who worry or have long-term stress, when you're worrying all the time, when it starts to interfere with how you think, and people even can start to experience physical consequences of stress, which can lead to specific medical disorders, things like general anxiety disorder. That's when it can be a problem.
So, how did we morph from never talking about stress to now stress being almost a continuum in most people's self-narrative on a daily basis? Like, what was the transformation? And is it reality, or is it to some degree a little bit self-imposed?
I think that life has gotten more complicated in many ways, certainly with the advent of social media, certainly with the internet, right? We're so connected. There's so much news. There's so much going on. We're bombarded nonstop by events really from all over the world. If you think about how we used to communicate, things just used to be slower, right? 30, 40 years ago, newspapers, print material often took days for news to trickle down to people. But certainly with the internet and social media, we're constantly bombarded and surrounded by, oftentimes stressful events.
And is it reality or is it not? I mean, is it how do people deal with that? And some people seem immune to stress.
Well, I think so. Stress is, again, a normal part of life. I think what really becomes a problem is when it starts to interfere with your life, when you start to have excessive worry, when you start to have things like physical symptoms where you're tired all the time or always need to move or fidgeting or things like that, then that starts to cross over to anxiety and to some of these medical conditions. And we do know that approximately 15% of the population does experience sort of these medical anxiety disorders. Again, things like general anxiety disorder. I think for people that have, quote, figured it out or that do better, they've learned to manage their stress. And that is the key point, is that people have to learn how to manage the daily stress and be able to cope with it.
And then is it more of a health issue now because we have high blood pressure, because we have obesity, because we have other risks to our bodies that are complicating this? Then you add this sort of stress, maybe potentially morphing into anxiety, that then really becomes a health issue.
Yes, I believe that it's all related. The physical symptoms, the physical conditions with the mental health conditions. For example, we know that things like being overweight or being obese can definitely contribute to mental health disease, things like anxiety disorders. And we also know things like exercise, right? Like even just getting out for a walk can lead to decreased mental health and disorders, as well as other physical disorders like hypertension, like cardiovascular disease, et cetera.
And then what's the strategies? You're a physician, you're a frontline doctor, you're seeing folks all the time. They sit up on the table there and you say, "How are you feeling?" And they say, "Oh, I'm so stressed out." What's your response?
So this is one of the most common conditions that we do see here in primary care. I do feel like I talk about it with almost half of my patients that come in. There's so much in the world that we can't control. What I try to do is remind people about the things that we can control. You can control your level of exercise, what you eat. A lot of times you can control your sleeping habits. And I think at the end of the day, it really just boils down to taking moments, taking time for yourself, trying to set limits, for example, with social media, with media in general, except for GoLocal, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But with just creating some boundaries and taking some time for yourself, making sure that you eat healthy, making sure that you get regular exercise. If you do feel like you are overwhelmed and stressful, find a counselor. It's often helpful to talk with people, and just making sure that you set aside time in the day to be mindful, to relax, and to have a moment to yourself.
Is it like in the midst of a fight, somebody telling you to calm down? Is it analogous to say, don't be so stressed? I mean, does that only, to some degree, almost agitate it? Is there, listen, we've always had traffic, we've always had to get the kids to schools, we've always had death of family members. Is it just that we talk about it more? It's more acceptable to talk about it, and thus it's more in the norm.
Absolutely. It's something, I think over the years where talking about one's mental health has become more accepted. It has become more ingrained in our medical system to be okay with talking about it. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we are recognizing it more. Certainly, if you don't talk about something, you're not going to be able to identify when someone may be struggling with it. And I do think that we as a society, as a culture, as a medical profession, are getting to a better place where we can talk about these things and hopefully prevent more severe consequences of things like anxiety and stress from taking place.
I've noticed it in the comments on social media. I've never quite seen anything like it in recent weeks, really post the election, especially as the Trump administration has been making moves. You're seeing these really aggressive debates going on, oftentimes inappropriate, and those get removed, between different Rhode Islanders expressing views. And it used to be that we'd get 30 or 40 comments on sort of an interesting national or local issue, and now it's 400, 500, maybe even 1,000 comments on one particular news article being posted to Facebook. Is this sort of a manifestation of this stress, or is this an expression of our stress?
Well, I think it's good that people are engaged in general. I think that we are in a challenging time politically in our society, regardless of what side you fall on. I'm reminded, though, that I do really, really encourage people, Rhode Islanders especially, to just be respectful, right?
Yeah.
So it's normal to discuss these topics. It's normal to feel stress about these topics, especially if they're affecting you, especially if jobs are being eliminated, your job is being eliminated. That's all normal. But I think we need to be respectful, especially to each other, about these, and engage in forums and discussions that are beneficial and that are positive and move us to a better place. And I do think in general that most people want that. I do think sometimes it's easy to be a little bit negative and disrespectful over social media. You're not in front of someone, but just really want to encourage everyone to be respectful and engage with others in an appropriate, respectful way.
Yeah, we had a great story the other day about a young man grew up in South Kingstown. Family lives in Rhode Island. He went to URI, won the Tony Award a few years ago, 3 years ago. Now is in the lead of the new Disney Snow White. And there were a couple of people just putting up sort of horribly hateful comments. They didn't seem to know him or really know anything about it. Needless to say, those comments were deleted. And you just wonder, like, would you ever say those things to someone's face? And, Rhode Island is a big family table, right? Like, those big family dinners at Thanksgiving or Christmas where there's like 25 people and side tables and the kids are over there? That's Rhode Island. And so I do think that online people sort of lose their minds a little bit from time to time. Express your view, get it out there, but be respectful and have a decent conversation. Let's jump to some other aspects of stress. When do you, as a physician, really worry about a person's perceived or what you determine to be stress level? Is it only as it morphs into an anxiety disorder, or could it morph into other aspects that you start to say, this is something that we need to talk about?
So when we talk about stress and leading especially to mental health conditions, we're really talking about aspects of depression and anxiety. And one thing too, I'm reminded, Josh, as you're talking, is that one of these manifestations can be irritability. Irritability is recognized certainly as a symptom of depression and or anxiety. And I think as a physician, one thing that's really a flag for me is when it becomes excessive, when it starts to bother people and lead to physical symptoms. They can't concentrate, they can't function in work or school. Those are the times that we really want to take more of a medical intervention. When I talked before about things like exercise, about being taking a moment to yourself and going for a walk outside, those are a lot of times more preventative. You want to try to prevent stress and anxiety from taking over your life and becoming excessive. But when it gets to that point where you're always worrying, where you're worrying every day, when it's controlling your life and affecting you both physically and emotionally, and you can't even do your job or school, that's when more significant medical intervention is often warranted.
Dr. Chan, you get the last word. If someone is feeling stressful, thinks it's more than just the normal level of stress, what should they do? What's your suggestions?
If it's not excessive and it's not bothering you, but you're certainly feeling stressed, overwhelmed, get some exercise. Even going for a short walk, 10, 15-minute walk outside, someplace green, can definitely make you feel better. If it's getting to the point where it really is overwhelming and you're worrying about it every day, please, please, please talk to a healthcare professional, talk to your primary care provider. It's worth having that discussion. I know sometimes it can feel uncomfortable, but it's important to get the help that you need in order for not to become worse.
Dr. Phil Chan, as always, we greatly appreciate you taking the time joining us. I think the public has really enjoyed hearing your expertise. The response in viewership and readership has been remarkable. So thank you as always. For everybody else, stay tuned. There is a lot going on. It is almost nonstop, 24/7. GoLocal's got a great story about an Italian restaurant chain here in Rhode Island that just keeps growing. It's a great story. Kate Nagel wrote it. Take a look at that. On the sad side, one of the last Jewish delicatessens and markets left in the state is closing down up on Hope Street. Take a look at that. We broke that last evening. Much more to come. A lot of college basketball. Kevin Stakeham's got a big piece tomorrow on Rick Pitino, who he knows well. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. And if you have not been out today, it is a spectacular day of weather. Enjoy it.